If freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. Freedom of speech is a key mechanism by which we keep our society functioning. It is how we test new ideas and how we come to agreement on contentious issues. It is through the institution of free speech that we've been able to correct many shortcomings that we see in society. For example, extending suffrage to women and repealing oppressive discrimination laws. Despite freedom of speech being used historically to emancipate members of disadvantaged groups, many are now calling for institutions, and indeed the government, to introduce new regulations on free speech. And nowhere are these calls more prevalent than in our universities. A report published recently found that only 14% of universities are correctly upholding free speech laws. For examples of the degeneration of free speech on university campuses, one need only look to recent events at the Oxford Union, where a speech by Steve Bannon was disrupted following the blockading of the entrances to the Union, denying the opportunity for his speech to be heard. The issue with this is, as Thomas Paine said, he who denies to another the right to hear contrary opinions makes a slave of himself to his present opinion. In this case, the protest denied all parties a free and open forum in which Bannon's ideas could be expressed, explained, and debated. This phenomenon, however, is not limited to figures on the political right. Germaine Greer was subject to a similarly fierce campaign to stop her delivering a lecture at Cardiff University due to her stance on trans issues. But I'm not seeking to criticise protest. Protest is vital and powerful, and one of the few ways in which the average person can have an impact on the world around them. However, even when dissent is at its strongest, even when we disagree fundamentally with what is being said, our commitment to freedom of speech demands that a distinction between peaceful protest and the forceful suppression of opposing views is made. In calling for voices to be silenced or punished, protesters encourage authorities to police speech based on viewpoint. The issue with this is who defines hate. An example of this that feels particularly prominent for me is the case of a man in Scotland who has been criminally charged for a tweet that he sent regarding Captain Tom Moore, who, as we all know, recently passed away. Despite passionately opposing what he said, we still have a responsibility to defend his freedom of speech. And I think this is where many of the issues surrounding freedom of speech arise. As the old adage goes, everyone is in favour of freedom of speech for those that they agree with. But it is only through defending the speech that we vehemently oppose that we truly defend freedom of speech. Those who call for restrictions on freedom of speech in order to protect minority groups don't see the potential dangers of government infringement on free speech. For a recent illustration of this, we don't only look to China, where peaceful dissent among the country's minority Uyghur, Tibetan and more recently Hong Kong populations has been treated as a form of terrorism and has met harsh sanctions including loss of liberty. Or to Turkey, where 15,000 academic staff have been dismissed in order to make the universities take a more pro-government stance. I recognise that it is possibly a majority of people that are concerned with the way that free speech is used to attack members of disadvantaged minority groups. This has, without question, been a notable part of the journey that freedom of speech has taken to become the concept that we recognise today. While freedom of speech does include the right to offend, it does not include an obligation to do so. While there are those who will use their right to freedom of speech to attack others, there will also be those who use their right to continue to campaign for equal treatment for oppressed groups in society. What I'm essentially advocating for is the right to think, and the right to express the opinions that you hold in order to refine your ideas. What I'm arguing for is the right to challenge opinions that you don't share and the right to support the opinions that you do. I really do believe that this is of paramount importance to society's ability to socially advance. Without dissenting voices, those who challenge the status quo, no progress is possible. If we take away the right to oppose the agreed upon narrative, we condemn ourselves to stagnation, idleness, and apathy. If we, by the products of our actions today and all subsequent days, create a world where dissent is impossible, a world that we know we are powerless to change, what reason do we have to go on? In defending free speech, even that which you disagree with, you are defending your right to continue thinking freely. For that which cannot be expressed cannot be thought. You are defending your right to make mistakes, to think out loud, to disagree with the prevailing opinion, or to support it. You're supporting the right to advocate, to continue fighting for equality, for the trans and gay communities, and for people of colour. You are supporting the rights of the pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong to have their voices heard. And you are supporting the right to freedom of speech of the man who was fined for calling Vladimir Putin a fantastical I believe that recently the public have been sold this meme that freedom of speech is a right-wing issue. And I can understand why. It seems to me that every time the topic of free speech arises, it is with reference to the deplatforming of right-wing figures such as that recently of Donald Trump. But the point I want to get across is that this is not a right-wing issue. This is not even a left-wing issue. From where I'm standing, this isn't a political issue. This is a human issue. This is an issue that has the potential to shape our lives in countless ways and is so more far-reaching than any of us can comprehend. The words we speak shape the world around us, and the right to utilise this power to change the world for the better is one that should be unalienable to us. It is a responsibility of all of us to defend both our right and the right of other people to freedom of speech. Our right to freedom of speech was paid for by our forebears long ago, and it was paid for in courage and in blood. It wasn't designed to make us comfortable. It was designed to keep us free. Freedom of speech was once thought to be sacrosanct, and I believe it should remain so. I'm going to end with a few lines from the famous poem written by Pastor Martin Niemöller, as I think it illustrates the need to defend the freedoms of others in a better way than I ever could. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Thank you.